If you're a State Farm customer in Illinois and you have a homeowner's insurance policy with them, I'm not sure if you've heard the news yet, but they're raising their rates by 27%.
State Farm has canceled my homeowner's insurance and it is freaking me out. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you how I got in this stressful situation.
Yesterday, I got a letter that said my insurance premium on my home was about to double. Literally, the renewal was almost double.
Welcome back to Edwards Economics. My name's Kaylin, and the American home insurance market right now is not just expensive anymore, it's literally breaking. Premiums are up 30% nationally over the last 2 years. State Farm is non-renewing policies by the tens of thousands, and entire zip codes in Florida and California can't even get coverage at any price. So what in the world is going on with insurance in America right now? Let's find out.
I'm not one to come on here and cry and tell anyone personal information about myself. But I never want anyone that I know to go through what we're going through right now. If you have insurance on your home, you need to call and make sure that, ask the simple question of, if something as devastating as what happened to us, our whole house is gone, can we just build exactly what we had with our insurance policy? Because what I'm finding out, you know, when you think you're like, okay, well, let's just build exactly what we had, it just doesn't work like that. I don't know a lot about insurance.
The replacement cost, and then just how much materials cost now. Even if they did insure for what your house is worth in order to replace it and rebuild exactly what you had, it's probably like 50% more.
But it doesn't even come close. So we're gonna probably have to sell our lot to try to pay off the mortgage and then find something else. And I just thought that, God forbid something like this happens, you have that's why you have insurance. And it just doesn't work that way. So
yeah. Thing is, I mean, this is very sad, obviously. And this is how a lot of people think insurance works. And honestly, this is how it should work. But this could be a lot worse if they didn't even have what they had. Does that make sense? It's a little bit of a silver lining. Obviously not what anybody wants to hear, but this is one of the reasons I hate insurance.
There's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, and if you live in California, it's probably been hitting you too, even if you haven't realized it yet. It feels like everything keeps getting more expensive, but nobody is saying the quiet part out loud. Every time there's a wildfire, every time there's a heat wave, every time a neighborhood floods, insurance companies quietly rewrite the rules. They raise premiums, they drop coverages, and suddenly people who didn't do anything wrong are being told that their homes are now too risky to protect. More than 1 in 5 California homeowners are uninsured because of canceled policies and unaffordable premiums. And I've watched people get hit with this. Friends who have had to move because their insurance completely disappears. Renters whose landlords jacked up the rent because their insurance doubled. And that's the part nobody tells you. You don't have to own a house for this shit to wreck your life. If you pay rent, if you pay utilities, if you live here at all, you're in it. And the reason this keeps happening isn't mysterious. Big oil spent decades knowing their pollution would supercharge wildfires, heat waves, floods, and they kept going. Now, California is burning, flooding, overheating, and regular people are the ones getting billed for it.
Yesterday, I got a letter that said my insurance premium on my home was about to double. Literally, the renewal was almost double. A few months ago, I made a video talking about how the hurricanes in Florida and the Carolinas were going to shoot home insurance premiums up throughout the country. Why? Because the government wasn't going to allow these companies to not do business in certain areas. So the cost to mitigate that would have been spread amongst the rest of us. It's about to get a lot worse with what's going on in California right now. Something's going to have to happen. Something's got to break. As for me, you better believe I'm not just going to blindly pay that. Now, I got the notice from my bank. So the bank's already paid the premium, and obviously that means that my mortgage payment's going to go up because more is going to have to go towards escrow.
My house burned down and insurance companies are just scams. For context, the county that I live in the fire report that they did, which is a report done by the fire department after the incident, they estimated the damage to my house at $750,000. Almost immediately after the fire, we contacted and contracted an architect to do a feasibility study to help us figure out how much it was going to cost to rebuild the home. Their estimate was between $600,000 and $900,000, depending on options, finishes, etc. We got the first number from our large loss adjuster, who's a person who works at the insurance company and helps us figure out how much money we're going to get to do the rebuild. So remember, fire department says 700.
Helps you guys, helps them figure out how much, how little they're going to pay you.
150,000. Architect says between 6 and 9. Insurance company, $258,000.
Yeah.
Make it make sense.
We bought our house in April of this year. In May, we moved in. And then in June, our insurance company decided to drop our homeowner's insurance, just cancel the policy. They said it was because of our roof. We had an inspection on our house. We knew everything about the roof. We knew that part of it had been replaced 2 years ago because of a claim. We knew that the other half still had about 5 to 8 years left. And we thought we'd be fine because we also made repairs on the roof right after we moved in. Actually, before we moved in. That's why we moved in a little bit later. We had someone come and verify the roof was the age we thought and fixed a couple places so that we wouldn't have problems. Our homeowners insurance company did not agree. They didn't care. They said the roof was too old. That 5 to 8 years did not matter to them. They don't cover roofs with that little amount of life left. So that's where we're at. It was incredibly stressful going back and forth with this company once they said that they were going to cancel our policy and the roof was too old. Like everyone that's looked at the roof, we've gotten second opinions. Our agent thought it would be fine, but then underwriting, they just had a completely different opinion. So we ended up going back and forth for a little bit, and the insurance company just eventually was like, nope, we're not covering you. We're done. Goodbye. So now we're at the place where we either replace the roof and we try to go back to them, which obviously we're not going to do, or we get new insurance. So right now we are shopping around for new insurance, and hopefully that works out.
State Farm has canceled my homeowner's insurance, and it is freaking me out. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you how I got in this stressful situation. So I've learned 2 things from this. Number 1, don't listen to nobody else. Do what you were gonna do from the beginning, and call your insurance agent, not the insurance company. So how did we end up in this stressful situation? So back in February, I had a water heater break, and a lot of other things happened because of that water heater break, and I had to get all of those things fixed. I had to pay for it. Everyone was telling me, hey, call your insurance. You probably have coverage for that. Call your insurance, call your insurance, call your insurance. And I was like, no, because I was taught if you can pay for it, even though it may put you in a little bit of a bind, if you can actually pay for it, go ahead and do it. Do not call your insurance. Should have listened to my own self, but I listened to other people. So I called the insurance company, not the agent. I should have called my agent. Calling the insurance company, I asked them, hey, do I have coverage if a water heater breaks to get it fixed? You know, do we have that appliance stuff on my insurance? The person told me they don't know. They don't think so. They can't really see it. They don't know for sure. They told me to file a claim. State Farm told me to file a claim. The person on the line. I said, okay, I mean, like, it's already done. Like, I don't really, and they told me no. That way you can know if you have the coverage for it or not. Okay, cool. I put it in. It does end up getting denied. This is why I should have called my agent instead of the insurance company, because my agent would have said, no, girl, you don't have the coverage. Do not file that claim. They told me to, and now they have denied my coverage from here on out because of me filing that claim. They have decided to not renew me, cancel my homeowner insurance because I filed a claim that they did not cover anyway. And on top of that, they called me a couple of months later and said, hey girl, we noticed you asked about this coverage. How about we get you to get that coverage, and had me pay almost $700 for that coverage. And then they canceled my homeowner's insurance.
Wow.
That is why don't listen to other people and call your insurance agent first.
Here's the real shape of what's actually happening right now, because yes, these horror stories, they tell us something, but they are hiding what's actually going on behind the system. First, we need to talk about the pricing. The average homeowner's insurance premium in America has gone up roughly 30% over the last 2 years. In California and Florida and even Louisiana, the jumps are closer to 50% or more. Some creators in these clips are showing their rate hike letters. 27% here, 30% there, even a 40% in a single renewal cycle. That's a market where the actuaries have decided that the old math just doesn't work anymore and they want to make some more money. Second, we need to talk about the carriers. State Farm announced in 2023 that it would stop writing new policies in California. Then it stopped renewing the existing ones. Allstate, Farmers, Nationwide have all pulled back or exited entire regions. In Florida, the private market collapsed so badly that the state-run Citizens became the largest insurer in the state. Citizens was supposed to be the carrier of last resort, but now it's the carrier of final resort, as in literally everybody has to use them. Then we get into houses, and the rebuild cost per square foot have skyrocketed. Since 2020, the cost for these materials has increased like 30%. The materials, labor, and code upgrades make it all even more complicated. The insurer isn't pricing your house as it stands, it's pricing what it costs to rebuild today. Now I want to talk about the forced place problem, because when your policy gets canceled and you can't find a new one, your lender buys a policy on your behalf. It's these policies that protect the bank though, and not you. They cover the structure only and not the contents, not the liability and not the living expenses if your home actually burns down. And they cost anywhere from 5 to 10 times what a normal policy costs. The bank tacks it onto your mortgage and you find out 3 months later when your escrow goes into the negative.
Hi, I'm Karen. And it's really funny today. I got home to a Plymouth Rock notification for our homeowners insurance. We've had probably about 5 years, if not a little longer. We transferred when we remortgaged, whatever. It was a friend of our son's. We got a cancellation notice today. And the reason of cancellation for this non-renewal is loss history wind, $12,100 paid. They paid for a new roof because we had damage to our roof. So being that we claimed on the insurance that we've paid for years, they're canceling our policy. Isn't that crazy? Am I just the only one who thinks that's weird? I'm just like totally flabbergasted, but yeah, pay a claim and lose your insurance. Gee, thanks Plymouth Rock. Just know about that from Plymouth Rock. Here it is. Loss history, wind, $12,100 paid on February 1st. And they won't renew.
The next part of the insurance crisis in California is that people are receiving letters stating that they can only sell to cash buyers. I have a client who bought a condo in San Diego years ago and recently got a letter from her HOA stating that they no longer have insurance. They were dropped and not able to find any other option for insurance. And so for the time being, condo owners for condos in that complex can only sell to cash buyers. But the thing is, California Fair Plan is always an option too. So I let her know that she may want to talk to the HOA about that. And then the HOA said they are looking into it. However, they've already had a special assessment of $1,200 this past year for insurance, and then they still sent out a letter stating that they are not insured whatsoever. So yes, nobody can get financing for those units.
I just found out today my homeowner's insurance, which renews in March, is going to go up by 40%. And I have USAA, who is known for having really great prices for their members. Wow. So just a PSA, make sure you check before it goes up, because USAA was not going to tell me. It wasn't until I actually got an email from my mortgage lender who said that, hey, just so you know, your insurance is going to go up 40%. It was a lot of money. So now I'm going to have to call a bunch of insurance companies. If you know which ones have the best homeowners insurance, I get my car insurance through Progressive. I used to get my homeowners insurance for every home that I've owned through USAA, and that has been the only one I went to because I checked other places and it was incredibly more expensive at other places. And now I've got to find one of those ones that was more expensive that's not quite as expensive.
The biggest threat to the housing market right now is not the high interest rates, or it's not the available inventory that we have for sale. It's the insurance quote. This year alone, I had 4 separate transactions that had to be canceled because we were not able to secure an insurance policy on a property that was affordable enough for my clients to be able to afford purchasing that property. As you know, if you're buying a property, especially if you have to use a loan in order to purchase that property, you have to get insurance on the house. If not, the bank will straight up deny you and you cannot close on the property. Well, what's happening right now, especially in my state, in California, a lot of insurance companies left the state, and the ones they stayed in the state and they're doing business, their policies tripled or even more than that. For example, the last property I sold, it was a townhome. My client was paying around $40 a month for that coverage. The new buyer ended up paying $250 a month for the same coverage on that property. That combined to the high interest rates and the high prices for homes, a lot of buyers are not able to qualify for the loan and they're not ultimately able to purchase the house.
Here's why even the rich people in LA can't afford their homes and will not be able to afford to rebuild their homes. I've seen a few videos and comments where people are like, oh, but they're rich, who cares? Like, I don't feel bad for rich people losing their stuff because they can just go and rebuild another home. And that is true for some, but not for all. And that's because of homeowners insurance. Let's say you have a $5 million home that just got burnt up in LA. You call your insurance so they can cut you a check to rebuild. And this is exactly what they're going to say. Yeah, so we're only going to be able to cover about $1 million of your $5 million home because this is what you bought it at 20 years ago. Oh, and all the belongings that you had in your home, well, do you have receipts for those? The painting that you said that you had for $17,000, do you have it appraised? Oh, all that jewelry and grand piano and expensive furs that you had, well, do you have receipts for those? No? Oh, okay, well, we're going to give you a depreciation value on that. The piano that you said was worth $20,000, well, you don't have a receipt for it or appraisal on it, so we're actually going to quote you about $500. And this is exactly what's going to happen to so many people. Like, so many of these people bought these homes and bought this stuff so long ago that inflation has completely obliterated any sort of money that they think they're going to get back.
These days, I don't blame people when they say, I can't afford my insurance anymore. It's a lot of money. Everybody's paying a lot. It doesn't really matter where you live. You're paying two, three, four times as much money as you were paying last year. I'm paying double what I was paying last year, and I never even had a claim. So people think about this, and I say it's not a good idea. The average person will have an insurance claim every 6 or 7 years, and they can be huge. They can be in the tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And unless you're independently wealthy, I wouldn't suggest that you go on your own.
If you're a State Farm customer in Illinois and you have a homeowner's insurance policy with them, I'm not sure if you've heard the news yet, but they're raising their rates by 27% for new policies effective immediately and for existing homeowners insurance policies on August 15th. One of the reasons that they cited for such a drastic increase in homeowners insurance rates is that they've cited that they paid out $638 million in hail damage claims in Illinois, which was only second to the state of Texas. And apparently out of the last 15 years, they've taken on unsustainable losses in this department. Now, I think that it's absolutely hilarious that the business they're choosing to stand on for raising rates by 27% because of 13 years of financial losses, doesn't really seem like that's the case overall, because as of their 2024 annual report, they have more than $162 billion in liquid assets. And if you look down here at the bottom, their net income has changed by more than $9 billion since last year. They were running at a $4.7 billion loss in 2023 to a net profit of $4.8 billion in 2024. Interesting. So like a good neighbor, is State Farm being upfront and truthful about its reasons for raising homeowners insurance rates by 27% in Illinois? Or is this just another tactic to bamboozle you?
Why does my homeowner's insurance keep going up? We haven't made a claim in, let's see, 7 years, 6 years. We made a claim like a year after we got married, I think, on the roof and the siding. And we haven't touched it since. And it doubled. And now I just got mail that it's gone up $300 more. So what the crap? Does anybody else have Foremost? What's going on?
Your homeowner's insurance is going to be the reason that you're forced to sell your home in the next 5 or 6 years for a lot of Americans. Now, does this mean a crash? Couldn't tell you, but it's going to be a really big market adjustment. So you guys are on here saying that Florida is having a huge amount of foreclosures. What actually is happening in Florida is that a lot of major insurance carriers have pulled out of Florida. Thus, the remaining carriers are jacking up the rates. So when you have a mortgage, if you can't afford to maintain your insurance policy per your loan contract, right? They do something called calling your note due, because you are in default of the terms set forth in that contract. So because you can't afford homeowners insurance, It's technically a forced foreclosure, but really they're selling their home not because they can't pay the mortgage, but because they can't afford the insurance to go with it. Now, how does this affect you in every other state? Well, when they pulled out of Florida and they're having an argument in California about raising the rates, or they're going to pull out of there as well, they're going to have to subrogate those costs by raising insurance premiums everywhere. Now, for a lot of people, a 5 or 8% increase in your insurance every year is not going to kill you because, you can adjust to it. But in a lot of states, we're seeing like a 20 to 30% increase on your insurance rates. And that is an increase that can throw a lot of people in bad hot water, especially with so many Americans being up to their eyeballs in debt as it is.
So if you guys would like more breakdowns like this, head over to edwardseconomics.com and subscribe so that you guys can get all the information you need to know about the economy from a biblical perspective. Thank you guys for watching this video once again. I pray that the Lord blesses you, that he keeps you, that he lifts his face towards you, that he turns his countenance towards you, that he gives you favor, and that he gives you peace.